So we look at access control policies mostly for files, and these are the access controls specifically for the Linux or Unix based systems, right? So at a very high level, the access control essentially tries to answer this question about who can access what, right? Who is essentially the subjects, and it could be a user, it could be a process, or it could be an application, and what is an object, right? So typically it is files, but it can be also extended to beyond files. So for instance, it could be sockets, it could be hardware, it could be programs as well, right? And the word access defines what a subject can do on a particular object. For instance, the access could be a read, write, execute, or share a particular object. Okay, so uh, very basically, the most fundamental access control policy is what we call as DAC, or discretionary access control, right? So here the access is essentially based on the identity of the requester, right? So what does it mean? So if you are a user, you log into a system. Now based on your login ID, you are given access to certain files, right? And the second point is that uh, these set of rules essentially define what a user can do on a particular object, or in other words, what a subject can essentially do on a particular object, right? So it defines certain privileges, and the subjects are essentially restricted to applying those set of operations on the objects, right? Another very prominent factor in the discretionary access control policies is the aspects of privileges, right? So here we have some kind of an administrator which is all powerful, and this administrator can grant a privilege or even revoke a privilege. So for instance, the administrator could say for instance modify or delete a file which is owned by you. It could make a file which you essentially have created from a read write to say read only file, and this administrator, for example, in Linux or in Unix type environments, we call it as the root user, right? Has all the is considerably more powerful, because the root user or the administrator far exceeds the privileges of a regular user. Okay, so typically users can pass on privileges to other users. So for instance, in Linux, there's a command called chown, which can essentially change the ownership of a particular file, right? So we look at one of the earliest discretionary access control policy known as the access matrix model, right? So this particular model was introduced by Butler Lamson in 1971. Here the subjects are active elements requesting for some information, and objects are passive elements. So it's represented as this particular matrix. So we have subjects such as in this particular case users like Anne, Bob, and Carl, and the columns of this particular matrix are the objects. For instance, these are file 1, file 2, file 3, and program 1, right? In each corresponding cell, we essentially uh, fill in what a particular subject can do on a particular object. So for example, Anne is the owner of file 1, can read and write to file 1. On the other hand, the subject Bob can only read from to file 1, it cannot essentially write to the file 1, right? Similarly, for program 1, Anne can only execute it, Carl can execute as well as read this particular program, and Bob has no access for it, right? So if I try to extrapolate this to an entire operating system, so when a user say Anne logs in, Anne is essentially given a set of rights for each file and each program that is essentially present in the hard disk, right? And based on the particular file and the cell in this row corresponding to Anne can essentially perform certain operations on these files and are limited by these set of operations, right? So the ownership, read, write and execute are the fundamental operations that can be present. In addition to that, there are some other variants as well, like uh, uh, control transfer. So relationships between the father and son. So this father and children. So for example, between say a parent process and child process, and so on. Right. So typically, um, uh, while this is the easiest way to essentially understand this access control matrix, especially the discretionary access control policies, it is not very efficient to implement, because quite often this matrix would be quite large. For instance, a typical hard disk would have like hundreds of files, which and therefore the matrix would have one column for each file present on the hard disk, and therefore it would be quite a large matrix. What makes it worse is that most of these entries in the matrix would have some default value or the same value, or be left empty, right? So the matrix would be quite sparse. The amount of information present in this matrix is very much limited. So in practice, most operating systems do not use this discretionary access control policies, but essentially implement one of these two implementation methodologies. One is capability based and the other one is with the help of access control lists. So in a capability based access control policy, each user, say Anne, Carl and Bob, are essentially given a particular linked list um, of what it can essentially achieve, right? So for example, Anne has a linked list which contains every possible object it can essentially access, and thus when Anne say opens a file, say file X or something, this particular linked list is traversed, the file X would be essentially identified, and the operation and whether Anne can essentially perform that specific operation on that file X is essentially verified, right? The other methodology for implementing these discretionary access control policies is with the help of access control list, right? In some specific way, this is essentially a transpose of capabilities, right? So here, instead of each subject having a particular linked list, here each object has a linked list. So for example, you have file 1 and a linked list of every possible user and the corresponding operation that can be performed on that user, right? So there is a subtle difference between the two, and this difference makes it advantageous to use capabilities in some scenarios or access control lists in other scenarios. So certain advantages of capability based systems is that delegation is very easily. So for example, Anne can essentially create a certificate stating that she delegates all her files or all her programs and all her entire linked list to somebody else, say Ted, for a certain period of time, say from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m., right? So delegation of a particular task to somebody else is quite easy. The revocation, on the other hand, is more easily done with the access control list. So revocation is essentially easier because all that needs to be done is traverse the list, and nodes in the list are essentially modified or removed to essentially modify who is authorized to use a particular object. Now, if this is essentially implemented with the help of capabilities, then it becomes a bit more involved, because every subjects list needs to be traversed to identify the object in concern, and the corresponding permissions should therefore be modified.